The story begins with a horde of red ogres attacking the village, and the people cower in fear as the monsters advance. A dragon appears flying in the sky, and a man is riding on the dragon's back, reciting a chant. Hundreds of paper talismans descend upon the ogres, and one talisman stops in front of each ogre. A devastating explosion follows, destroying part of the city. One of the ogres manages to survive, but it is devoured by the dragon in a single bite. We then learn that this man is the strongest exorcist in the world, who once sought to become the greatest. But his relentless pursuit of power made the imperial court fear him, and in the end, they betrayed him, even sending his own disciple to fight against him. In his final moments, he laments not having been more cunning and casts a secret spell of reincarnation, swearing to do his absolute best in his next life. After this, we are introduced to a boy named Seika Lamprogue, who is standing in the middle of a magic circle. His father performs a ritual to test his power, but none of the elemental magic stones light up, which means that he has no magical power or mana. His brother Glai mocks him, saying that he is a disappointment, and we learn that Seika has been reincarnated into a new world, where magic is completely different from the spiritual arts of his former life. Even though he has no mana, he can feel a vast amount of spiritual energy flowing from his body. We then see Seika gathering leaves. Since paper is very expensive, he creates a talisman using leaves. The leaves transform, some becoming rats and others turning into crows. Suddenly, Glai appears, asking what Seika is doing. He looks down at Seika and threatens to hit him, but Seika's crows defend him. Their other brother, Luft, arrives and drives the crows away. Realizing that Seika is unarmed, Luft becomes suspicious, but in the end, he takes Glai away to recover. We see that Seika is teaching himself about this new world. He is the son of a mistress, which gives him a lower status and causes him to be considered illegitimate, so he is usually ignored at home. We watch him working hard, producing his own paper, and finally managing to make his talisman. There is a knock at the door, and a young maid named Yifa appears. She returns his coat that Glai had thrown away. Soon after, Glai enters, bragging arrogantly, ordering Yifa back to work, and boasting that he will enter the Imperial Magic Academy. While Glai brags, their father arrives, saying that everyone must return to training. Before they leave, Seika asks to join them. We see Luft casting his spell, summoning a blade of wind that cuts through a large stone. Then Glai demonstrates his magic, throwing a fireball at a scarecrow. He feels very proud of himself and challenges Seika to try, believing Seika has no power. Reluctantly, Seika takes the wand. He does not want to reveal his true abilities too soon, but at the same time, he decides that showing something might stop his brother from bothering him further. Using his spiritual arts, he fires a blue fireball that completely destroys the scarecrow. The family is astonished at his power, especially since he conjured it without speaking a single incantation. Glai tries to excuse himself, saying that Seika must have stored power in the wand beforehand, but for the first time, their father acknowledges Seika's abilities. Seika asks if he can also study magic, but his father refuses, saying it would be useless, since no one without innate magic has ever become truly successful. However, he provides Seika with a tutor who grants him access to books. Seika spends all his time studying magic on his own, even spying on Glai's lessons to keep up. Over the years, Seika finally completes his talisman. We then discover that in his previous life, he would defeat demons, capture them, and seal them in another dimension, summoning them later when needed. He believes that even in this new world, he might be able to summon his servants. As a test, he attempts to summon his most obedient demon. A door suddenly appears, and out of it comes a young girl. Seika does not recognize her immediately, but she leaps onto him with joy at their reunion. The girl is Yuki, and she remarks that his appearance seems different, since his spiritual energy is weaker than it was in his past life. Seika is pleased with his success, and Yuki asks how she can help him. Seika explains that this was only a test, and that no one else can see her. Yuki then transforms into a small wolf, saying she is tired of the other dimension, and insists on staying with him. The next day, we see Glai yelling at Yifa for spilling water on him, but his tone changes, and he suggests that she might compensate him in some way. And Seika ends up intervening, saying that he has something to discuss with Yifa. His brother becomes irritated and tries to punch him, but Seika easily stops him, and Glai storms off, fuming. Yifa thanks him, and then leads Seika outside, showing him the injured rabbit. She wonders if he can save it, and Seika asks her to turn the other way so he can concentrate. He takes a strand of the creature's fur, and using his talisman, he successfully heals it. Yifa praises his talents, and Seika realizes that she is also someone special. Yifa becomes nervous, and Seika notices that she can see the spirits of animals. It is also said that she can see elemental spirits, and she remarks that it is strange how these spirits seem to avoid Seika. He asks Yifa if she can command those spirits, and she recalls a time when wind spirits were carrying away her laundry. But the light spirits scolded them, and then they appeared and left again. Having studied this ability in his previous life, Seika sees Yifa's potential and offers to teach her about magic. Yifa says she has no mana to use magic, but Seika tries to teach her by summoning the spiritual flame, and he tells her to command it to vanish. She tries to ask gently, but without success. Eventually, she loses her patience and firmly insists that it must disappear. And, surprisingly, the flame vanishes. Although her power is still weak, Seika realizes that she will be a great ally in the future. They become friends and sometimes train together in secret, and they continue their training through all the seasons for an entire year. On Seika's 12th birthday, there is no celebration as usual, and his father is not even present. He tries not to let it bother him, and surprisingly his brothers approach him with wooden swords. Glai, as always, reminds him of his insignificance, and says that the only path left in his life is to join the army. Luft clarifies, saying that they want to help him learn how to wield a sword. Suddenly, the maids alert everyone that a monster is coming toward the house, and that their father is away. Seika can sense something strange approaching, and we see the head of an enormous old sea monster rising from the forest. Glai runs away in terror, and Luft orders everyone to take shelter. But Seika rushes outside, and we see the beast targeting Yifa. Seika runs to protect her, but when the monster attacks, it is repelled by a flame. Seika is astonished that Yifa is able to command this flame, so he lures the beast away from the house. The monster charges at him, and everyone watches in horror. But using his spiritual arts, Seika unleashes a poisonous blast into the creature's face. The beast immediately collapses, completely incapacitated by the venom, and Seika prepares to tame it. Everyone is astonished at this feat of defeating a sea monster with a single strike. They all applaud him, and Seika smiles, waving happily, at last feeling that his family truly recognizes and appreciates him. He hopes that this will be the beginning of the life he has always dreamed of. They hold a feast in his honor for the very first time, and his father congratulates him for the achievement, saying that even veteran adventurers would have struggled to face such a beast. His father offers him a reward, so Seika asks for permission to study magic at the Royal Academy. His father reflects on how Seika has always studied magic on his own, and he agrees to the request. But he warns him that even though he belongs to nobility, Seika will still need to pass the entrance exam on his own. Seika then asks for Yifa to also attend the academy as his attendant, wanting to keep her unique ability close. Yifa panics when she hears this, but his father says it would be useless since Yifa has no magic. Seika insists she demonstrate their training, and he hands her the wand, instructing her to command as many spiritual flames as she can while pretending to cast a fire spell. She commands the flames and follows his instructions, launching a forceful attack. Glai is shocked to see that Yifa can use intermediate magic, and their father accepts that Yifa will go as well. Glai, arrogant as always, opposes his father's decision, saying that it would break the tradition of sending two brothers along the same path to the academy. His father agrees and declares that Glai will instead join the Imperial Army. Since Glai has always preferred playing with the sword rather than improving his magic through the years, Glai refuses to accept this and challenges Seika to a duel to decide who will go to the academy. Their mother tries to stop them, but Seika accepts the duel, and their father decides that the duel will take place in the morning. Back in his room, Yuki appears, commenting on all the drama. Someone knocks at the door, and Luft enters. His brother wishes him a belated happy birthday and even gives him a gift, because Seika has always studied with diligence, and the present is a glass pen. Luft continues, apologizing for having been distant all this time, but says that he is glad to see him becoming a respectable young man. He asks him to be gentle with Glai during the duel and wishes him luck at the academy. Later that night, Seika's window is forced open by the wind, and Glai demands a duel. He cannot wait until tomorrow and refuses to follow his father's rules. He says that Seika only got lucky because the monster showed up, and that he was lucky to defeat it. Glai then attacks with a fire spell, covering Seika in flames, showing that he too can use intermediate magic, but it has no effect. Glai keeps launching a barrage of spells, but they are blocked by a barrier. Seika then takes out his paper talisman, and Glai keeps attacking, but without much success. Seika orders Glai to stay still, and he becomes completely paralyzed, shocked by what was happening. Seika crumples the talisman's little arm, making Glai feel the same pain, leaving him very confused about these powers until he finally gives in. He faints on the spot, and Yuki wonders if it was wise to let Glai see his power and still walk away alive. But Seika says he promised Luft he would spare him. Seika thinks back to Glai saying he was lucky, but we discover that everything had been part of his plan. We see that 6 months earlier, Seika had summoned a gigantic cyclops named Bonds. Despite his appearance, Bonds was happy to be able to serve him once again. Yuki explains that she was the first to be summoned, Having researched the monsters of the region, Seika entrusted the Cyclops with the task of driving the old merman out of the mountain. As she goes to fetch her brother, Yuki wonders why Seika doesn't show his true powers, calling the people of this world weak, but he reminds her that it was the conspiracies of the weak that in the past led to his death, so he won't make the same mistake again. Sometime later, Seika and Yifa prepare to leave for the academy. Luft delivers his father's words, saying that Seika must study hard, and that Yifa must take care of him. The two set off, and on the way Seika gives Yifa a necklace. She is moved to receive it, and he explains that the necklace is made of spirit stones, which will help her attract elemental spirits. They are very excited about their new adventure, but Seika starts feeling sick. This problem with traveling already existed in his past life, since he suffers from the well-known motion sickness. He starts to feel better as they approach the city of the academy, a fortress dedicated to the pursuit of magical excellence. Back at his home, his father realizes that Seika must be arriving at the academy soon, and he recalls that 12 years ago, when Seika first appeared, a woman came to the door and vanished after handing him her child. We learn that Seika is in fact the son of Gilbert, and his brother had become an adventurer after graduating from the academy, but they lost contact when he entered the demonic lands. Seika's black hair and eyes are rare in this country, and he started using magic when he was only 1 year old. This caused Luft to distance himself from him, while Glai began treating him with hostility. After discovering that Seika had no mana, Luft always knew there was something very strange about him, aware that within him was something that could turn him into either a hero or a terrifying villain. Luft felt guilty for sending Glai to the army, but believed it would be far too risky to send Seika as well. Instead, he decided to send him to the academy, hoping it would be a better place to develop his abilities. Seika and Yifa arrive at the dormitory and head to their rooms. Yifa is surprised to realize that he truly has a weakness. Seika tells her room is next door, but she seems disappointed and suggests she should spend the night with him, since she is now his master. Seika misunderstands, thinking she was talking about dinner, and says he lost his appetite because of the trip. Even disappointed, Yifa leaves to look for food for him. Soon after, Yuki appears irritated, saying that he understands nothing about girls. She points out that Yifa is in love with him, even using her position as a slave to get closer, leaving Seika in disbelief. Later, the two explore the city, but Seika senses a very strange energy. They continue until the registration for the entrance exam, and when Seika reveals he is from a noble family, everyone around pays attention. Yifa introduces herself as his slave, surprising everyone. A magical artifact is used to measure mana, and Yifa demonstrates affinity with the wind and fire elements. When it is Seika's turn, nothing happens, leaving the examiner confused. Seika reveals that he has no mana, but the woman tells him he can still register. Other students start whispering, saying that he was only accepted because of his family, and Yifa gets irritated and lets out some flames, silencing everyone around. At that moment, a confident girl walks by, and Seika notices something different about her. She introduces herself as Amiyu. When she places her hand on the artifact, a dazzling white light appears, showing that she has affinity with all 4 elements. Everyone is impressed, and Seika calls out to her, thanking her for putting a stop to the gossip. But Amiyu replies that she wasn't trying to help him. She says that, in fact, she finds him irritating, thinking it's unfair that he can enter without magic, and claiming he would only get in the way. Even so, Seika recognizes her as the disciple, the most talented one from his other world, even if her appearance is slightly different. They take the entrance exam, and Yifa grows worried about her performance, but Seika reassures her, saying she can make up for it in the practical test. During the practical exam, the instructor explains that there are targets for each element, and the score depends on how many are hit. The students cast their spells, but Seika isn't impressed. When Yifa's turn comes, she uses her fire magic, creating a massive flame that even scorches the resistant target. Everyone is shocked, as she used intermediate magic without chanting, and then she follows up with her wind magic, completely destroying another target. Even nervous, she apologizes for the damage, and Seika is surprised to learn that she trained on her own just to impress him, even feeling moved by her growth. Now, when it's Seika's turn, the others whisper about him without stopping, and he casts a fireball, yet his blue flames leave everyone stunned. Next, he approaches the earth target, and with his knowledge of spiritual arts, he transforms the granite into crystal, shattering it. The examiner panics, unable to understand what kind of magic he used against the water target. Seika uses his talismans, creating freezing arts that turn the water into a glacier. Everyone is in shock, and Seika wonders if he overdid it. After the test, the examiner is in disbelief, since Yifa had been measured as weak in mana, and Seika supposedly had none. They discuss the exceptional students, and Amiyu stands out even more, destroying all 6 targets. The teachers even comment that she might be the legendary heroine foretold to appear when the Demon King is revived. Days later, the results are announced, and Yifa fears she may have failed. But Seika discovers he placed third and wonders who managed to surpass him. To his surprise, Yifa is ranked second, leaving him speechless to realize she outperformed him. In first place, unsurprisingly, is Amiyu, impressing Yifa even further. Not long after, they receive their acceptance letters and proceed to the academy's welcome ceremonies. Yifa worries they won't be together since they'll be in different dorms, but Seika reassures her. Suddenly, he senses something strange and asks Yifa if she can see the spirits. She reveals that there are many dark spirits around, and Seika goes to investigate. There, they find a massive magic circle. Since it might belong to the academy itself, they decide not to interfere. Still, Seika leaves some of his talismans there, just in case. Inside the academy hall, the students enjoy a banquet. Seika can't resist and grabs some food, while Amiyu begins her speech as the student representative. However, Seika feels the magic circle activating, and the doors are blown open as several lesser demons appear. The students panic, running in fear, while some attempt to face the creatures. But Seika realizes they are far too weak. One of the demons charges forward, and Seika prepares to act, when suddenly the monster is cut down. Amiyu steps in, attacking with her wind magic and fighting the enemy directly. Meanwhile, Seika notices something is very wrong, and using his talismans, he surveys the area and discovers the true caster within the magic circle. He warns Yifa to stay safe and vanishes, leaving one of his talismans behind to protect her. In the forest, Seika finds the demon responsible and tries to speak with him. The enemy, however, calls Seika a fool for daring to challenge him. The demon summons more lesser creatures to attack, but Seika quickly eliminates two and captures the third. Impressed, the enemy introduces himself as Gallas, the demon of metal. Seika attacks with his talismans, but the demon destroys them, and to his shock, Seika realizes he can see the normally invisible talisman. He tries again, this time using several at once, but Gallas blocks everything. The demon fires a blade, which Seika easily dodges. However, the blade reappears, and he understands that Gallas can teleport his blades. The demon also launches fireballs, and when Seika leaps to escape, the enemy appears behind him, slashing him and severing one of his arms. Remembering that the demons were searching for something, Seika asks what he is after. Gallas reveals that he seeks the hero, and Seika replies that the hero is nothing more than a legend, a fairy tale, but the demon laughs, insisting it is real. He explains that he received an oracle 12 years ago and believes that Amiyu, the red-haired girl, is that hero. The enemy keeps attacking with his blades and even impales Seika, believing he has killed him. But soon he discovers that Seika is unharmed. The demon stabs him, even through the head, yet Seika regenerates, declaring that he can revive as many times as needed. Determined to kill him and then eliminate the hero before she grows stronger, Gallas unleashes his full power. But Seika laughs at the idea of being the strongest, evades the strikes, and floods the area with a tsunami, creating a massive whirlpool. The demon escapes using his teleportation ability, reappearing above in another spot. At that moment, Seika opens a gate and summons a beast of thunder, which strikes him with lightning. Since the demon was already drenched, Seika believes he has defeated him. But as the smoke clears, the demon emerges again, stabbing him in the back. Seika, however, reveals that this was his trap, having imprisoned the demon and triggering a massive explosion. Even so, Gallas survives and begins regenerating, claiming that Seika must be running out of talismans. But Seika shows him his personal collection of countless talismans, explaining that he has been making them since he was a child, for many, many years. And to end it once and for all, he opens another gate and summons one of his most powerful servants, yet a serpent dragon. Gallas is stunned to see such a creature, declaring that not even the Demon King himself would possess such power. The beast lunges and crushes him in a single bite, but when Seika tries to recall it, the dragon goes berserk and attempts to escape. He uses several talismans to restrain it and manages to force it back into the gate. Startled by its rebellion, Seika wonders if this happened because of the fragility of his current body. Suddenly, Yuki appears and asks if it was wise to use so many double-body talismans. Seika replies that it was necessary to analyze the enemy's attack patterns. He returns to the hall, where Yifa is worried about him. She tells him that Amiyu single-handedly defeated 3 lesser demons, leaving the other students both shocked and uneasy. Seeing their looks, he realizes that she may end up sharing the same fate he once did in his past life. Determined, he resolves to help her grow stronger so that he himself can live peacefully. 1 month after the attack, the academy resumes its routine, and Seika tries to get closer to Amiyu, but she remains cold, ignoring him completely. While walking to class, Seika and Yifa are nearly hit by a liquid from a suspended jar, and he teleports them away at the last moment. Professor Cordell appears, apologizing, saying it was a special mixture of monster blood and minerals used in his research. He tried to move it with magic, but ended up spilling it. After apologizing, he continues on his way, and Seika and Yifa head into their next class. The teacher informs them that the Academy's founding anniversary is coming, and she needs the help of the two best students, Amiyu and Yifa, since a ritual must be performed. She explains that the list of new students must be taken to a temple in the forest to be blessed. Seika, remembering the demon battle in that location, believes it could be dangerous. He asks what would happen if one of the students refused. The teacher replies that the next in rank would take the role. Upon hearing this, Seika orders Yifa to step down from her position, shocking the students. But Seika insists the ritual is important and should not be carried out by a slave. After class, he apologizes to Yifa, and she realizes he was only trying to draw attention away from Amiyu, who had begun to grow resentful after his performance against the demons. She asks if Amiyu is his type, but Seika responds that he only wants to be her friend, since she is the strongest. Yifa becomes jealous upon hearing this, claiming she can also become strong, but Seika explains that being that strong means being admired and feared by everyone, affirming that this is exactly what will happen to Amiyu. A few days later, Seika receives the student list and sets off into the forest with Amiyu. She grows suspicious, thinking he is trying to get closer to her despite already having Yifa. But Seika says it's all a misunderstanding and has nothing to do with Yifa. Suddenly, Amiyu feels a headache, and Seika notices a magic circle. They find it strange, and soon the circle activates, transporting them into a dungeon. 3 lizardmen appear, but Amiyu charges forward and defeats them easily with a fireball. An ogre emerges behind her, but Seika summons a wooden pillar and crushes the creature's head. Amiyu finds that spell very strange, but Seika brushes it off, saying it's just a magic he learned from a noble. They begin exploring the dungeon, and Seika lights the path with his talisman. He sticks several to the ceiling, leaving a trail, and Yuki wonders what he's doing. Seika explains that his Shikigami on the surface can track them and help them find a way out. Soon, Yuki senses more monsters approaching, and Amiyu rushes forward to fight them again. But during the battle, her headache returns, and she collapses unconscious. Seika hurries to help, using his wooden stakes to pierce the enemies, but they are far too many. Seeing Amiyu unconscious, he summons a massive centipede that wipes out the remaining monsters. When Amiyu wakes up, she is shocked to see all the enemies dead, and her headache flares up again, but eases once Seika raises a barrier. He explains that his barrier can block curses, and asks when the pain first began. Amiyu replies that it started when she entered the academy, but she doesn't think it's a curse since she never saw any mark. Seika tells her there are places she cannot see by herself, and worried, she undresses so that he can examine her body. They find no mark, but Seika insists the curse could be hidden in other ways. Since the barrier protected her, he concludes it really is a curse. Amiyu fears she might have to live inside the barrier forever, but Seika uses one of her hairs to craft a substitute. During that time, the two grow closer, and Amiyu asks about Yifa, saying she seems to be in love with him. Seika replies that he sees Yifa as family, which amuses Amiyu, since a noble considering a slave as family is unusual. He explains how he was always treated as strange, and only Yifa ever treated him normally. Amiyu then talks a bit about her own family, but since the subject is delicate, Seika changes the topic and asks what she enjoys doing. She admits she has loved fighting since she was little, even though others found it odd, since most people fear pain or death. She even joined a party that was wiped out, but still craved more battles, and everyone thought there was something wrong with her. She came to the academy to grow stronger, believing that if she became the strongest, combat would feel fair, and she could live a more normal life. But during the fight against the demons, she realized she enjoyed herself too much, and now fears there really is something wrong with her. Seika tells her she is not strange, and she thanks him for letting her open up. Moving forward, they reach the boss's chamber, where a giant monster awaits. The creature spits acid at Seika, but Amiyu distracts it with her wind spear. Seika seizes the chance and summons a metal spear that pins the creature, while Amiyu launches a fireball, triggering a chain explosion. With the opening created, she drives her weapon into its head, finishing the battle. Afterwards, Amiyu hugs Seika in celebration, and together they rejoice in their victory over the dungeon boss. They then proceed to the treasure room, where they find a chunk of mithril. Seika gives it to Amiyu, while he keeps a magic ring for himself. In the end, they escape and report everything to their teacher. She claims she had no knowledge of the dungeon beneath the temple, and since the magic circle vanished, the culprit could not be identified. However, Seika visits Professor Cordell, already suspicious, after the demon attack and the teleportation into the dungeon. He concluded there must be an insider. Cordell is shocked, thinking he had already erased the evidence, but Seika demands he reveal his true form, only to discover he is human merely working for the demons. Observing his ritual, Seika even calls him a genius, and Cordell proudly admits it, revealing that his curse used light magic to kill at a distance, disguised as illness. He begins boasting about how he would have killed Amiyu, but Sokka tells him she is already protected. The curse targeted those who were covered in demon blood, and since Amiyu killed them all, she became the target. To save her, Seika summons the demon he had captured and drenches himself in its blood, making himself the target. Using an anti-curse technique from his past life, he reflects the spell back onto Cordell, who begins bleeding to death. Even so, Seika admits he is impressed that Cordell developed a curse from scratch in this world, but as an exorcist, curses are his specialty. After the confrontation, Yuki asks how he knew Cordell was the culprit. Seika reveals that his Shikigami found pollen on him, coming from flowers that only grew near the magic circle. With the problem solved, he hopes he can finally return to just being a normal student, and he gives the magic ring to Yifa, who begins attracting elemental spirits more easily. Meanwhile, he keeps trying to be friendly with Amiyu, but to his surprise, she remains cold toward him, though she has grown closer to Yifa, leaving Seika curious about when they became friends. A year passes peacefully, and the students gather again for another banquet, where Amiyu thanks Yifa for helping her with studies throughout the year. She says she's glad she can finally enjoy the meal, since last time the demons interrupted. Seika keeps watch over the academy with his talismans, just in case, when suddenly the vice principal approaches him. He informs Seika and Yifa that they are needed in the headmistress's office, and Amiyu jokes, saying maybe he's about to be expelled, but Seika senses something is off. Yifa grows curious about what the headmistress is like, since until now it seemed the vice principal ran everything. Upon entering the office, they meet the short dwarf woman, who remarks that she expected Seika to be more arrogant. He's surprised to see a demi-human leading the academy, and the headmistress finds his comment strange, saying it reminds her of someone. Seika asks if she knew his father, but she clarifies she was thinking of his uncle, who uncovered the truth about his real father. Getting straight to the point, the headmistress says she wants him to take part in the Capo Sword tournament. She calls another student, Mabel, explaining that the academy received 2 slots. One belongs to Mabel, the other will go either to Seika or Yifa. Amiyu is shocked by the news, not understanding why she wasn't chosen. She asks why they're entering a sword tournament, and Yifa explains that the rules have changed to allow magic. Even so, Amiyu refuses to accept not being selected, since she's skilled in both sword and magic. Apparently, the headmistress simply felt Seika was more suitable. Seika suspects the academy didn't want to showcase anyone too strong, in order to avoid talent hunters trying to poach their students. Still, Amiyu asks why he was chosen, but Seika describes himself as just average, though she can tell it's a lie. The 3 of them then start talking about Mabel, and Amiyu suggests she must be a noble who got her spot through connections. At that moment, Mabel appears and says the reason Amiyu wasn't chosen is because she's weak. This enrages Amiyu, who grabs training swords and challenges Mabel to a duel. As they prepare, Seika notices Mabel's confidence with a blade, and Yifa considers stopping them. But Seika wants to see what Mabel can do. The fight begins, Amiyu strikes first, but her attack is blocked. Mabel counters and dominates in seconds, winning the duel easily. Mabel mocks her, calling her heroine, but Amiyu accuses her of using magic. Mabel responds that Amiyu is weak because she always expects second chances. Then she warns Seika to withdraw from the tournament if he doesn't want to get hurt, stating that it will be brutal. He thanks her for the warning, and she leaves. Yifa checks on Amiyu, who seems to have made up her mind, and soon after, they are all riding a carriage toward the capital. But Seika is confused as to why Yifa and Amiyu are coming along. Yifa says she's only going as his servant, while Amiyu admits she snuck in, saying she always wanted to see the capital. Seika realizes her real reason is to watch the tournament and see Mabel fight. He asks where she plans to stay, and Amiyu replies that she'll lodge with Yifa. During the journey, Seika gets sick from the carriage's motion, and Mabel calls him weak. Amiyu tells her to respect her elders, but Mabel reveals she's the same age as them. She just enrolled a year later. Yifa also says she joined a year late, meaning she's actually the oldest. That makes Amiyu understand why Yifa seems more mature. Mabel criticizes the academy, saying everyone there acts like children, including Seika. But he replies it's because they are children. When they arrive in the capital, Seika is still queasy. While Mabel heads on ahead, Yifa suggests he rest at the inn, but he insists on visiting the arena to check the tournament. He learns that if they both advance, he'll face Mabel in the semifinals. After seeing the bracket, he decides to rest, and Yifa wants to stay with him, but he asks her to explore the city. Amiyu comments that he should enjoy himself more, but Seika tells her not to be weird. The next day, the tournament begins, and the announcer declares that with the new rules, about half of the participants are mages. Each competitor carries an amulet that absorbs damage and ends the fight when it breaks. Seika realizes this is to prevent deaths, and he is the first to fight. His opponent is a former noble turned mercenary, nicknamed the Swift Mad Dog, famous for his speed and swordsmanship. Expelled from his own family for bad behavior, he considers it lucky to face a noble since he holds a grudge against nobility. The crowd gets excited to see a duel between the mage and the swordsman, and the man mocks mages, saying they take too long to cast spells, while Seika mentions he's still sick from the trip. The man thinks it's just an excuse, but in reality, Seika only meant that he plans to finish the fight quickly. This angers his opponent, and the battle begins. He strikes fast, even piercing Seika, but with his talismans, Seika slips behind him. Using another spell, he hurls the man out of the arena, ending the match instantly, and Seika is declared the winner. The girls cheer for him, while the audience is left confused at how everything ended in the blink of an eye. Meanwhile, Seika thinks maybe he should hold back a little more from now on. When he's alone, Yuki appears, asking how far he intends to go in the tournament, warning him not to draw too much attention. She also fears he's burning through too many talismans, but he says it's necessary since he's protecting the two girls. When he rejoins them in the stands, the next round begins. We meet Belen, a top disciple of a famous water mage, and Kyle, a guard of the Rugrok Merchant Association. From Kyle's appearance, the crowd wonders how he plans to fight. When the duel starts, as Belen prepares, he suddenly notices Kyle's gaze. Seika realizes something's wrong and tries to get a clearer view. Kyle slowly approaches, while Belen freezes in place. Seika sees the fear on Belen's face as Kyle merely walks up and stabs him. Blood spills across the arena, and the audience is shocked and confused, but despite the death, nearly everyone cheers at the spectacle, everyone except the trio. Seika studies Kyle more closely and realizes he has an evil eye, capable of enchanting with just a glance. Seika enters his second match, where his opponent is a massive golem. It's enchanted with magical defenses, and its master brags that it was built to fight mages. She tells Seika he has no chance and should give up. But as the fight begins, Seika instantly summons one of his demons, which slices the golem apart and vanishes. To the spectators, it looks like Seika used wind magic, leaving the woman baffled. Seika retorts that she should be the one to quit, and he's declared the winner. After the duel, Seika mutters that it was close, confusing Yuki. He explains that summoners are forbidden, and if they noticed the demon, he would have been disqualified. When Seika returns to the stands, Yifa worries about him. After watching Kyle kill his opponent, she suggests Seika should withdraw from the tournament. Seika reassures her he'll be fine, and Amiyu comments that his fights end too quickly, saying it's not fun to watch battles like that. She asks if he'll join the Imperial Guard if he wins, but Seika says he plans to refuse. Amiyu feels relieved to hear this, though she tries to hide it. Seika adds that he's not guaranteeing victory, but Amiyu can't even imagine him losing, while Yifa remains uneasy. The next match of the second round begins, and now it's Mabel's turn. Her opponent is Rollo, a skilled earth mage. As the fight begins, he hurls a boulder at Mabel, but she cuts straight through it. Surprised, Rollo rains stones down on her, but Mabel slices them all apart. Rollo steps back and begins chanting a stronger spell, raising a wall to protect himself. But Mabel throws knives that shatter it. He raises multiple walls, but Mabel keeps breaking them with her daggers. Amiyu wonders how she's doing it, and Seika suspects she's using gravity magic to make her weapons heavier than the stones. She keeps tearing down the walls, and when the mage tries to counterattack, Mabel surges forward and destroys his staff. He admits defeat, and Mabel is declared the winner. The announcer hails her as an unstoppable heroine, which strikes Seika as odd. Amiyu explains that Mabel was the name of the second heroine, who used the very same weapon, and Seika comes to a realization. That night, we see a man sending off a carrier pigeon, but he is intercepted, and Seika appears. He accuses the man of working for the demons, but the man feigns ignorance. As he passes, he tries to attack Seika, but is instantly restrained by Seika's force. Seika reveals he saw him speaking with an informant, using one of his shikigami. He demands to know about the message he sent, but the man refuses, saying he'll never talk, not even under torture. Seika summons one of his demons, the Satori, and when it looks into the man's eyes, it reads his mind. Seika begins questioning him, and learns that he really is working for the demons. Seika assumes they're after the heroine, and the man is shocked, since that was supposed to be a secret. Seika demands the name of the heroine they mentioned, and it is Mabel. Seika asks why he believes she is the heroine, and the answer is that it matches the spy's description. But since Seika destroyed the message thread, they cannot confirm it. After that, he releases the man from the vines, but tells Satori that he can eat him as a reward. The man panics, but is soon devoured by the monster. Satori comments that it was necessary, since it would be dangerous to let him go. But he is reading Seika's mind, and Seika threatens him for that. Satori gets scared, and Sokka opens the gate and sends him back. Yuki appears, and Seika apologizes for frightening her. He calls his body back and checks the pigeon's message, but it is encrypted, and he regrets not having kept the man alive. Seika deduces that the Academy's plan is to have Mabel win and attract all the attention as a false heroine, so that the demons will stop targeting Mew. Yuki becomes curious about Mabel's true identity, and Seika says she is probably using a false name, although he does not care to investigate, since she is there to protect Mew. The next day, Kyle eliminates his opponent in the same way, thanks to the evil eye, and a boy named Renius, who uses all 4 elements, also advances. Sokka encounters Renius, and he says he will see him in the final. Everyone comments on his ability to control all 4 elements, and his next opponent even gave up beforehand. Seika faces a necromancer in the 3rd round and defeats him easily, and Mabel also wins. After the match, she confronts Seika, telling him that he should withdraw before their semifinal, but Seika refuses. She acknowledges his strength and warns that she will go all out against him, yet she does not want to end up killing him. Even so, Seika does not back down. Suddenly, they announce that Kyle's next opponent has given up, so the semifinal between Renius and Kyle begins ahead of time. When the fight starts, Renius empowers himself with light magic to protect against the evil eye. Mew is surprised to see him using light magic in addition to the 4 elements, and Renius starts boasting about being immune, but Kyle keeps advancing without pause. He casts a fireball, but it has no effect, and he continues attacking with multiple elements, yet Kyle remains unfazed and keeps moving forward. Seika thinks he must be using gravity magic, like Mabel, and Renius grows desperate, summoning an army of golems to defend himself. But Kyle uses shadow magic and destroys all the golems at once. Renius charges, but Kyle traps him with shadows. Just as Kyle is about to finish him, the judges intervene, declaring Kyle the winner, sending him directly to the final. At night, Seika thinks about returning to the Academy after the final, and Yuki reminds him not to win. When he tries to sleep, Yuki suddenly transforms and says she wants to sleep with him. Seika replies that they always sleep together, but Yuki insists that it has been ages since she took her human form. Seika senses something and realizes that Mabel is on the roof thanks to his Shikigane. He throws himself onto Yuki, which makes her happy. But then an explosion occurs and Mabel bursts in. Seika prepares to fight and Mabel throws knives at him. She hurls him through the window, but he manages to pull back and tries to bind her with vines. Yet Mabel defends herself. She charges, but Seika counters with a double-body talisman, manages to restrain her, and tries to speak. Mabel finds it strange that he wants to talk after being attacked, but Seika realizes she did not intend to kill him. She reveals that she only wanted to break a few bones to force him to withdraw. Determined to reach the final, she asks once more that he step down. Seika reveals that he knows she is Mew's substitute, suggesting that her mission is to win as the heroine to draw the demon's attention. Mabel is surprised by how much he knows, but corrects the information. Her mission is not to win, but rather to die at Kyle's hands so that the demons will believe the heroine is dead. She reveals that both she and Kyle were trained by the merchants of Rugrok. These merchants take talented slave children and train them as soldiers. She says the merchants are testing Kyle to see if he has truly become a soldier. Seika asks what she means, and Mabel explains that to create a soldier they open the skull and inscribe magic directly into the brain, stripping away fear and doubt, making him obedient. The children train in groups of 4, living and training together. They learn to trust one another and to encourage each other, but in the end only one is chosen for the operation. As a final test, that child must kill the other 3 friends in order to become a soldier. Since she was considered disposable, they decided to use her in this mission to deceive the demons, and she reveals that she is the last person Kyle needs to kill. Although her mission is to die, Mabel intends to reach the final to kill Kyle instead. She declares that Kyle killed her brother and that she seeks revenge. However, Seika sees through the lie, deducing that Kyle is in fact her brother. He notices the dyed hair and the same eyes. Seeing that he has figured it out, Mabel says that before the operation, her brother asked her to become someone else, so that the surgery could be performed and he could finally rest. She no longer recognizes him as her brother, because he would never kill without reason, so she intends to fulfill his wish and put an end to his suffering. Seika asks if she can defeat him, but Mabel says she will manage, since she will probably die anyway, as the merchants would discard her. Shortly after, Seika decides that he will be the one to reach the end and defeat Kyle, and Mabel is surprised. Seika tells her that she does not need to be responsible for defeating him. Mabel states that it is already too late for her and that he does not understand because they come from different worlds. She says she no longer knows what she would do, but Seika tells her to return to the academy. She knows that the merchants will not allow it, but Seika promises to protect her, and Mabel does not believe him. Yet Seika asserts that he is the strongest that exists. He suggests that if her brother had one last request, it was so that she could be free. Mabel thanks him but swears to fight with everything she has to defeat him. And the next day their semifinal arrives. Mabel wields a huge axe, saying that she had only pretended to be the heroine. Seika is excited to see her true power, but Mabel calls him a noble brat and says he has no chance. The fight begins, and Mabel launches her attack, tearing through the rubble and advancing on Seika. But he dodges using his talisman. He is impressed by her speed and suspects she is using gravity to make the axe lighter. He strikes her with stones, but she spins and avoids them, then throws daggers imbued with gravity. Seika blocks them, then counterattacks with vines, but Mabel breaks free. However, he had placed a sheik game on her axe, making it 1,000 times heavier. He attacks with vines again, but now they are mercury-based and much stronger. He places another amulet on the axe, this time to make it lighter. Mabel says he will not even be able to scratch her with the axe this way, but he replies that he only needs to win the fight. Then he raises the axe and places it near his neck, and the judges declare him the winner. He reassures her and tells her to leave Kale to him, and the final fight begins immediately, with the combatants taking their positions. Seika apologizes for interfering with their plans, but Kale is only pleased because Mabel is still alive, meaning he can kill her later. Seika even tries to reason with him, but Kale tells him to mind his own life. The fight begins, but before Kale can activate his eye, a mist begins to form, covering the entire field, summoned by Seika. He attacks with his flames, but they have no effect due to Kale's gravity magic. Seika then changes strategy, summoning his mercury vines to restrain him, but Kale frees himself using shadow magic. Kale continues advancing, but Seika opens a portal and brings forth a minotaur. Kale attacks with his shadow, but cannot affect the creature. The minotaur hurls him away, and Seika comments that if Kale were capable of feeling fear, he probably would not have chosen such a reckless fight. Seika plans to let him live, but suddenly he is struck by a curse. He raises a barrier to block the spell, and the marks disappear. But he had already suffered severe damage and ends up spitting blood. Kale, on the verge of death, grabs him and transmits his last message to Mabel. Irritated for losing him to a curse, Seika refuses to accept it. He activates his technique and prepares to bring Kale back from the dead. Yuki pleads for him to stop, saying that this technique will draw too much attention and reminds him of his previous life. Seika recalls how he died, making him abandon the spell. After the fight ends, Kale disappears, but Seika explains that he completely vaporized, and the officials believe it. He is declared the winner of the tournament and receives the monetary prize, although he had hidden Kale's body in his void so that Mabel could give him a proper burial. She thanks him for the help, and Seika delivers her brother's last message, where he apologizes for breaking her clover. She remembers that when they were children, she had a hair clip that she cherished, but he had broken it accidentally. She says it was nothing serious, sheds tears at the memory, and bids farewell to her brother. She wonders what will happen now, but Seika assures her that she will be able to return to the academy, as he will take care of everything. They explain everything to Miu and Yifa. Although Seika hides the part where Mabel pretended to be the heroine, Miu interrupts and demands a rematch, but Mabel is not in the mood. Even so, Miu insists, and the duel begins, but this time Miu uses magic, cutting Mabel's sword. She reveals that she can now also use gravity magic. She tells them not to underestimate her and asserts that they are prepared. She says she is happy to have a new training partner, and Mabel is confused but ultimately decides to get along. Back at the academy, Seika meets the director and reveals that he discovered the plan to use Mabel. But the director explains that she sent her to the tournament to save her. She had felt pity upon seeing so much talent being wasted and found a way to make her lose without dying. She calls Seika her trump card, but he asks what would have happened if he had lost. The director states that she has lived a long life and knows how to measure a person's strength. Seika is surprised, and she responds that she stopped counting her age after 300 years. She guarantees Mabel's safety at the academy, but asks Seika to guide her, as this is a completely new life for her. Later, Seika reunites with his group, and Mabel has returned to her original hair color. She tries to sneak away discreetly, but he calls her. She considers him too strict as a tutor, but he insists she needs to study, as she cannot pass the entrance exam otherwise. Tears fall as Mabel asks Yifa for help, but Yifa says Seika is taking it easy, which surprises her, and summer vacation approaches. Miu asks how everyone will spend their time, and Seika explains that he has been assigned to investigate dragons in the country of Asteria. His father had received the mission, but as he is occupied, Seika was sent in his place. Miu asks to accompany him, but he reminds her that her parents are expecting her. Mabel says she has no plans and intends to go as well, but Seika reminds her that she needs to catch up on her studies. Then he invites Yifa, who quickly accepts. Suddenly, two people enter the hall and approach Seika. They introduce themselves. The first is Cecilo, the first prince of Asteria, and his companion is an elf named Lies. Seika exchanges greetings, but the prince quickly turns to Yifa. He invites her to join his harem and become one of his wives, shocking everyone. Yifa explains that she is Seika's servant. The prince even offers to pay a high price for her, leaving Seika astonished. Lies scolds him for causing a scandal, and they go to a private room to discuss the dragon investigation. According to legend, the dragon hatched from an egg incubated by the royal family, and the prince explains that the dragon lived alongside humans for more than a century. More recently, it has begun behaving strangely, attacking crops and even animals. He asks Seika to investigate and then turns his attention to Yifa, but Lies reminds him to behave. After the meeting, Seika is confronted by Amiyu and Mabel, who want to know what is happening. They are worried that Yifa might be given to the prince, but Seika thinks it could be a good opportunity for her if she were interested. Both insist that it would never be her desire and that he should not suggest it. Seika is confused, not wanting to deny a chance that could be important. 2 days later, he and Yifa join the prince's entourage toward Asteria. Seika struggles during the journey, and they talk about what it will be like to see a real dragon. Yifa mentions that the prince invited her to travel beside him, and she believes he was joking about the harem, though she appears somewhat flattered. 9 days later, they arrive at the capital of Asteria. The place is beautiful, but the prince explains that the dragon has caused the people to live in fear, making trade difficult. The dragon flies over the city, and Seika notices its size. Suddenly, it dives toward the group, passing them at high speed. A spell is chanted, and an impressive lava tiger is summoned. It attacks the dragon, almost hitting it, but the creature retreats. The tiger then turns its attention toward Yifa, running in her direction, but Seika manages to stop it just in time. Even as the tiger begins to melt its surroundings, he rushes to finish the creature, but it is suddenly restrained, and Zect, a summoner, appears. He scolds the tiger for losing control and seals it back into its grimoire. The prince rushes over and warns Zect for almost harming his guests, but Zect responds that he was only trying to drive the dragon away, explaining that it has been approaching more and has even started attacking people. Seika suspects his intentions, and the prince explains that this summoner is the leader of the mercenaries he hired. Zect questions how a boy like Seika could be of help, and Seika asks why he hired mercenaries. The prince admits he intends to hunt the dragon as a solution, and Seika warns him to reconsider, saying it would be impossible for the lava tiger to kill the dragon. Zect retorts that he has killed several dragons in the past, and the discussion intensifies, but the prince intervenes. He dismisses Zect and scolds Seika for provoking him. Seika apologizes. He explains that he lost his temper because Yifa was in danger, and then asks whether the queen approved the dragon hunt, as the creature is the symbol of the country. The prince says that everything was left to his discretion and reminds Seika of his position. Seika turns to Yifa and asks why she did not defend herself with magic, but she says she froze out of fear. He lectures her, telling her that he cannot always be nearby and that she needs to learn to defend herself. She begins to cry, and the prince tries to calm him, saying that it is normal to feel fear in the presence of such a creature. But Seika insists, stating that this was between the two of them, and tells her that if she cannot fight, she should at least flee or ask for help. As they return to the carriage, Seika feels guilty for having scolded her, but remembers a friend who froze in front of a dragon and was devoured. He does not want that to happen again, which is why he lectured Yifa. The next day, they go to the library to gather more information about the dragon. Seika discovers that a similar event occurred in the past, and that centuries ago the queen hatched a dragon from an egg, which lived alongside humans. After 50 years, another dragon arrived in Asteria, and the two lived together in the mountain. However, after 50 years, the dragons became hostile because they had offspring. Seika asks what happened to the offspring. They would leave the nest upon reaching adulthood, and after more than 50 years, the female died of old age about 100 years ago. Yifa concludes that the current situation is different, as there is likely only one male dragon, and it cannot be protecting offspring. Seika decides to climb the mountain to investigate for himself, and Yifa considers it risky, but he assures her that he can escape if necessary. That night, Yifa goes to his room, saying that the prince called her, and that she does not know what to do. Seika tells her she does not need to go and invites her to spend the night in his room, since she is afraid to be alone. He offers the bed, but she says it is space for two. Lying down, Seika asks what she thought of the prince and whether she considered his proposal, telling her she does not need to worry about him. Yifa thinks he is trying to get rid of her and apologizes for the previous day. Seika says that is not what he meant, and she asks why he brought up the subject. He responds that it could be a good opportunity for her, and she then asks how he would feel if she accepted it. He says he would be sad but could accept it, and Yifa says she will think about it, then quietly cries and wishes him good night. The next morning, Yifa is already gone from his room, and Yuki appears. She feels sorry for Yifa and reminds Seika that Yifa loves him. He believes they are only childhood friends, but Yuki realizes that she has always loved him. Later, Seika confronts Prince Cecilio about his interest in Yifa. He asks what attracts him so much, and the prince replies that he finds her beauty, intelligence, and charm captivating. He asks to buy her again, but Seika refuses, though he assures that if she wants it, he will not stand in her way. Seika tells the prince that he will climb the mountains to see the dragon, and the prince knows this will take days, thinking it will be the perfect opportunity to act. Seika bids farewell to Yifa and sets off for the mountain, and when she returns to her room, Lies approaches her. She talks about the fertile lands rich in mana, and reveals that she can see spirits around her, suggesting that Yifa may be of elven descent. She tries to convince her to join the harem, but Yifa can only think of Seika. Lies wonders whether Yifa will be content to become a slave. She comments that Yifa should know that Seika is a monster, and Yifa does not understand what she means. Lies explains that the spirits around Seika seem to actively avoid him, as they would with demons. Yifa believes Seika is human, since they grew up together, but Lies points out that she does not know his mother, who could have been a demon. Yifa insists on believing in Seika, and Lies then decides to show her the harem. As Lies presents the place, the harem is not what one might imagine. In reality, it functions like a school, training young women to become future leaders and officials of the kingdom. Lies mentions that the prince's mother is the current monarch, highly beloved by the people. The prince is concerned with her at this point, and therefore tries to prove his worth by solving the dragon problem and seeking a bride. Lies says she has known him since birth and assures that he is a good person, hoping that Yifa will remain by his side. Meanwhile, Seika reaches the mountain and encounters the dragon, which immediately breathes fire at him. But Seika blocks it with his barrier. The dragon flies and dives toward him, but Seika teleports using his talisman. Immediately afterward, he opens a portal and summons one of his demons. He lets out a deafening scream, causing the dragon to fall to its knees. He proceeds to the nest and discovers an egg, and Yuki finds it strange, since the dragon should be male. Seika explains that some beings can change gender and even reproduce on their own. He begins to care for the egg and realizes that the legends about the royal family hatching a dragon egg were likely true. He warms the egg while Yuki remarks that it is incredibly bold of the dragon to have Seika take care of it. Seika concludes that the dragon had been aggressive because it needed to fight to keep the egg warm. Now that they understand the reason for the hostile behavior, they decide to return and inform the prince that the situation is resolved. Seika thinks about leaving, but the dragon insists he stay, wrapping Seika with its tail and preventing him from going. Meanwhile, Yuki is taken to Prince Cecilio, who speaks with a man named Gold. As soon as the prince sees her, he says he has been expecting her and asks how it went at the harem. Shortly after, Gold examines her as a specimen. Considering her education and magical abilities, he sets a price for her. The prince agrees and confirms with his subordinate, and Yifa becomes confused by their conversation. The prince shows a large bag of gold, claiming he will free her. She mentions needing Seika's permission. If he did refuse, the prince even suggests issuing an order to summon all slaves, forcing Seika to sell her to him. Yifa tries to refuse, and the prince wonders why she would choose to remain a slave. She responds that even as a slave, she can still decide what to do. The subordinate returns with the papers and requests her fingerprint. The prince hesitates, but the man asserts that she will come to understand that it is for her own good. The guards restrain her, and she prepares to fight, but Lies incorrectly casts a barrier, blocking her magic. Lies then uses magic to cut Yifa's finger to use her blood as a fingerprint. But at that moment the dragon arrives and destroys the barrier. Seika is atop the dragon, apologizing for his entrance and explaining the dragon's situation. He says that he needs someone with fire magic to keep the egg warm. He calls Yifa to assist him, and Lies warns her not to go. But Yifa admits that she loves him, and they set off together. At the nest, they are attacked by the lava tiger. Seika restrains it with magic and calls Zect out of hiding. He and his men appear, and Seika realizes they were using the prince to reach the egg. Exposing Zect, he orders the tiger to attack him, but it is destroyed by a geyser of water. Seika is surprised, and Yifa states that she is not afraid as she was last time. The tiger attacks again, along with Zekt's men, but Seika uses a white flame spell, releasing a colossal flame that vaporizes the creature. Zekt asks who he is, and Seika simply calls himself the greatest mage in the world. The dragon approaches, and Zekt's men try to flee, but Seika captures them with his vines while Yifa studies a summoner's book. Seika praises Yifa, and is impressed to see that she has also learned water magic, gently patting her head. Seika then informs the prince that Zekt had deceived him, and he orders all the mercenaries arrested. Soon after, Seika explains the reason for the dragon's rage and suggests that if the prince helps hatch the egg, the dragon will return to protecting the people. However, the prince dislikes the solution, fearing he will be seen as indecisive and fail to please the royal court. He asks Seika to kill the dragon, suggesting that he could poison it in the nest. Seika refuses to believe such a thing should happen, and the prince insists, claiming it is necessary to prove he is worthy of being king. Seika refuses, and the prince summons the guards, accusing him of manipulating the dragon. The prince tells Yifa that she is now free and tries to convince her that Seika is dangerous, but Seika interrupts, losing his patience. He calls the prince a child and asserts that he will never hand Yifa over to him. Seika fears he may have overstepped, but Lies begins to laugh, telling the guards to stand down. She asks Yifa for her opinion, and Yifa again refuses the prince's offer, stating that she only wants to return to the academy with Seika. Lies advises the prince to give up and apologizes to Seika, who also apologizes for losing his temper. Shortly afterward, Lies calls Yifa for a private conversation and realizes that she truly wants to stay with Seika. She holds her hand and gives her rare light spirits, capable of healing. Yifa recalls an elven princess from Tales and wishes her good luck. Back at the academy, Seika asks Yifa what type of person she likes, and she replies that it is someone extremely intelligent, strong, kind, and a little lonely. Seika thinks she is being too demanding, considering it would be difficult to find someone like that. But Yifa believes it will not be complicated, and oh, our little protagonist, you see? Elsewhere, a group of demons battles monsters and easily destroys them. They surround a man who cannot believe his monsters were defeated so quickly. The leader asks to be guided, but the man does not trust them. His trump card appears to an ancient cyclops, and the chief confronts the creature, destroying its weapon and resisting the beam from its eye, defeating it effortlessly, leaving the other demons impressed. Shortly after, they kill a man and reveal that they are on a mission to locate and eliminate the hero. Back at the academy, Seika tells Yuki he wants to introduce her to his family, and she is surprised. Yifa misunderstands, assuming that he has chosen Amiyu, but Seika clarifies that he is going home for the holidays and his parents wish to meet the mage who commands all the elements. Amiyu agrees, and he also invites Mabel to accompany them. Meanwhile, with Saz and Yuki, we discover that he is not particularly enthusiastic about returning home, yet there is someone eager to see them. Upon their arrival, they are greeted by Luft and Seika's older brother. He introduces his friends, and Eds, Yifa's father, is delighted to see her. The reunion is interrupted by the arrival of Glai, and Seika fears that he still harbors resentment for having been displaced at the academy. However, Glai almost thanks him, stating he is satisfied to have joined the army. Even so, he recalls the humiliation and demands a duel. Amiyu volunteers to face him, and Seika says he will fight if she loses. The combat begins, and Amiyu launches her attack. Glai slips, and she seizes the opportunity to deliver the final strike. But he chants a spell, surprising her and disarming her. Amiyu complains that he cheated by using magic, but Glai asserts he did not even cast a spell. He demands to fight Seika, but before it occurs, Princess Fiona appears. Glai is her knight, and she declares that he will lose to Seika, causing him to relinquish the challenge. He is astonished to see him obeying someone, and Glai introduces Fiona as a sacred princess, leaving everyone impressed. Upon entering, Yuki asks what a sacred princess is and learns that it is not an official title. But she is the daughter of the emperor and a priestess, possessing the blood of both. Amiyu wants to know why she is present, but Fiona says she wished to meet her, observing that she resembles the heroine of the legends. Fiona recalls a vision her mother had and mentions that she will stay a few days, requesting Amiyu to accompany her upon returning to the capital. After Fiona leaves, Amiyu wonders how Seika knew she would be there. Meanwhile, Seika's father converses in his office and asks Eds to speak freely. He inquires whether he is upset about sending Yifa to the academy, but Ed says he is more troubled by her serving Seika. Finding him strange, Seika's father affirms that he has performed well at the academy, and everyone dines together. Strangely, Princess Fiona speaks about reincarnation, but Seika changes the topic, and his father praises him for his investigation into the dragon. His mother requests that he write more frequently, surprising Seika, since she has always ignored him throughout his life. In his room, Amiyu visits, saying she only wanted to spend some time with him and asks whether he intends to continue studying after graduation, commenting that she will probably return to being an adventurer. Seika recalls the promise he made when they were imprisoned together in the dungeon and says he will also become an adventurer to accompany her. Amiyu is surprised that he took the promise so seriously, but is also happy that they can continue together. The next day, Seika shows the city to the princess, and Glai reminds him that they left the other knights behind, so they must keep the princess safe. The princess holds Seika's hand to avoid getting lost as they explore the market. They try some foods but begin to attract attention, and as they pass a construction site, some debris suddenly falls, but Glai uses his wind magic to destroy it, and Amiyu creates a golem to protect them. Seika thanks them for their assistance, but the princess is upset because he did nothing. To make amends, Seika gives her a present and even helps her put it on. The princess is unsure how it looks, so Seika uses his magic to create a mirror. Glai finds the magic strange, but the princess is pleased with the gift. Later, Seika finds Glai training intensely and realizes why the princess chose him as her knight. But Glai reveals that it was not for his abilities, but for another reason, because the princess has the power to see the future. Seika is doubtful, but Glai explains that her mother was an oracle who foretold a prophecy of the hero and the demon king. Seika does not understand why he is revealing all of this, but Glai warns him not to interfere. The next day, the princess seeks out Seika, but he uses his talismans to avoid being found. Yuki wonders how this power to foresee the future works, saying it seems similar to his divination ability. But Seika explains that divination is limited, based on information and tools, while her ability is completely different. When Miu passes by, Seika surprises her, emerging from the bushes. She had just lost to Glai again, and Seika finds this strange, as she should be stronger than him. She comments that the princess seemed lonely, playing chess alone, so Seika decides to join her. It appears that no one dares to challenge her, and for that reason, the princess asks if he truly knows how to play. Seika responds that he is merely a beginner, so the princess gives him an advantage, leaving only her pawns. Seika thinks it will be unbalanced, but the princess proposes a wager. The winner will be able to request anything from the loser, and Seika hesitates, but she explains that if the request is excessive, he may refuse. He accepts, and the match begins. While they play, the princess asks which piece he considers the most important. Seika answers that it is themselves, as they do not fight directly but control all other pieces from the shadows. The princess responds that most would choose the king, but she believes the strongest pieces are those not on the board. Besides the king and the pawns, there are masses of people living in the country, and she has never had a king or knights at her side. Yet she has earned the support of the people and is confident she will win. Seika wonders if this is something she saw with her future seeing ability, and the princess is surprised that he knows that. Seika then forfeits the match, and the princess attempts to gain his support. He inquires about her true intentions, and she explains that she only wishes to save people. She uses a metaphor of a large pit where children play nearby, unaware that they will eventually fall. Thus, she wishes to save them, even without being able to give details, because revealing them could alter the future. Upon hearing this, Seika agrees to help in any way he can. When it is time to return to the capital, Luft bids them farewell, and Mabel wishes to linger a bit longer, having just relaxed, but Seika reminds her that she must resume her studies. During the journey, Seika rides in the same carriage as Glai and the princess, as it is the most stable. Glai is surprised by this perceived weakness, while Seika observes the caravan. Suddenly, an explosion occurs, but only a decoy carriage is destroyed, and Seika exits, realizing they are being attacked by bandits. The leader orders them to search the carriages and fire arrows at him, but Seika prepares, creating a magnetic cloud that blocks all the arrows. The bandits attempt to use magic, but he easily deflects it with his barrier, while Glai and his men retaliate. The princess requests that the bandits be captured alive, and Seika uses his vines to restrain them immediately. Afterward, Seika rejoins the group, and everyone wonders why the bandits would attack, knowing they were confronting the army, and what they should do with them now. Seika is then called by the princess, who thanks him for his assistance, and he asks if she knows who is behind this, but she says she has too many enemies to know for sure. Seika questions what will be done with the prisoners, but the princess had already foreseen this and prepared extra carriages to transport them back to the capital for interrogation. Seika thinks it is dangerous if they escape, but she assures him that they will behave, as reinforcements are waiting. To Seika, this makes them even more dangerous, but she affirms that the reinforcements will not arrive, so there is no reason to worry. Back in the capital, they separate, and the princess thanks him for his company, reminding Seika that she will always be by his side. Meanwhile, we see other bandits, but they encounter a group of demons and are completely annihilated. These demons continue moving toward the capital, having completed their mission to kill the hero. Seika is summoned by the director, who requests him to deliver a welcome speech, as new students are arriving, and she mentions that this is usually an honor, but knows he does not care about such matters. Seika accepts the request, and Yuki asks if he is truly fine, as this will make him stand out even more. Seika responds that it is nothing significant and wonders if he is being overly cautious after how he died in his previous life. Although he does not regret befriending girls, he thinks it will not be a problem to attract attention this time. Yuki asks if he will face the threat that is coming, but Seika replies that it will be easy for him, and no one will ever know it was him. Meanwhile, we see the group of demons outside, and their leader, named Zorman, realizes that he does not await the Imperial or high-level knights nearby. But he senses something that makes him uneasy, and he explains the plan to the others. They will split up, drive all the students toward the central building, and at that moment, massacre everyone and create chaos until the hero appears. Zorman assures them that they will succeed and that everyone will return together. The demons trust in victory and begin teleporting into the city. However, upon arrival, they find the red snow covering the entire area, and Gaines notices some students approaching and unleashes flames at them. As they get closer, they realize something is strange. Meanwhile, a sorcerer and a beast tamer explore the area, commenting that they have grown stronger since following Zorman. Suddenly, they see a student running, and the beast tamer sends his wolves after him. The wolves chase him through the mist, and after some time, he finds the situation odd and calls his beasts back. They return, bringing something very peculiar. On the other side, an ogre king named Mother Earth walks through the area without encountering anyone. Suddenly, he is attacked, and Mabel appears before him. She assumes he works for the Merchants Association, but he does not understand what she is talking about. They begin exchanging blows, and Mother Earth is impressed with her strength in handling the axe with such ease. Considering her a worthy opponent, he throws her far away, but Mabel hurls daggers that he blocks with his arm. Then, she activates her magic, enveloping him in darkness, but Mother Earth easily frees himself, having resistance against all types of magic. He charges at her with his club, but discovers she has mysteriously disappeared. Meanwhile, the Zorman group appears in a strange location, and Gainey arrives shortly after, realizing it is not the planned meeting point. However, they were guided there, and little by little, the other members also arrive. Everyone discusses the strange encounters they had, showing talismans they found. The men sense something is wrong and order an immediate retreat. Suddenly, Seika appears before them, revealing that all the people they encountered were merely his decoys. However, he clarifies that Mabel was real, and Mother Earth senses Seika's power, becoming eager to fight him. But Seika quickly defeats him, cutting one of his talismans and decapitating him. He comments that Mother Earth's resistance to curses was very low, and the men panic. The sorceress advances against Seika, activating her third eye and attempting to turn him to stone. Of course, it does not work. Seika summons one of his creatures, a gigantic serpent with an internal third eye, which stops her heart, dropping her instantly to the ground. Immediately after, the beast tamer's serpent bursts from the ground, but it has no chance against Seika's serpent. He tries to use his tamer ability to control it, calling it, but the men shout for him to flee. It is too late, and the serpent devours the beast tamer, and Seika comments that attempting to tame it was useless, as this creature harbors deep hatred for humans. The men are shocked, regretting having confronted Seika, and using their special eyes, he sees all their abilities and concludes that Seika is the true Demon King. He orders Gaines to escape using teleportation while he tries to buy time. Seika mentions that he is protecting Ambio and that they will not be able to defeat the heroine. The men panic upon realizing that the Demon King is on the side of humans. He orders Gaines to alert his allies and attempts to resist, gathering energy for an attack. But Seika counterattacks and completely dominates the fight. When the dust settles, only Gaines' escape remains, and outside the city, Gaines appears staggering, unable to believe that Seika is the Demon King, and he is startled by a rabbit in the grass. But suddenly he is pierced by a curse from Seika. Even Yuki shows some fear at his power, but Mabel arrives running, worried that Mother Earth might be attacking someone. Seika reassures her, saying he has already dealt with it and asking for secrecy. Sometime later, the students celebrate another banquet, and Seika thinks about what he should say in his speech. He asks Amiyu how she felt when she gave hers, but she recalls being interrupted by demons. Even so, she says she would have spoken about becoming stronger together and becoming companions. Seika prepares, but suddenly knights appear, interrupting Amiyu's search. She identifies herself, and the knights declare that she is accused of crimes against the Empire, alleging that she killed a demonic missionary. Amiyu is confused, unable to understand what they are saying, but she is arrested, and Mabel prepares to fight. Seika asks her not to react, assuring that Amiyu is innocent and that there is nothing to worry about. And so, Amiyu is taken away by the knights. Shortly after, Seika speaks with the director, and both realize that the Empire is attempting to frame Amiyu. Seika finds this strange, wondering why the Empire would want to eliminate the hero, and the director asserts that she is doing everything possible to save her. asking him not to act rashly. However, Seika does not seem to fully trust her, doubting her ability to protect Amiyu. As he leaves, he tells the two girls not to worry, because the director is already handling the situation, asking them to place their trust in her. Yet, during the night, Seika summons his dragon, which remains resistant to his new body. Seika forces the dragon to acknowledge him, asking if he is now worthy of being its master. And Yuki appears, warning him not to go, suggesting he give up on rescuing Amiyu. She believes that if he uses all his power to solve the problem, the country might act against him, and he could end up dying as he did in his previous life. But Seika does not care, declaring that he will destroy anyone who stands in his way. Yuki notices that he is consumed by anger, recalling his past, and urges him to reconsider. But he orders her to take her place as his familiar, and commands the dragon to head toward the capital. Meanwhile, we see Amiyu imprisoned, thinking of her friends, concerned and longing to reunite with Seika. Until she receives an unexpected visit, Seika flies over the capital with his dragon, Ryu, releasing his talismans, which transform and assist him in searching for Amiyu. He descends to the castle, unimpressed by the security measures in place. However, he is noticed by a guard who blows a whistle, and soon several archers take positions to attack. They fire arrows at Seika, but he summons his magnetic cloud, blocking every shot. As the attacks continue, he drops two enormous stones upon them, and pressing onward, Seika encounters even more guards. They ask what he desires, and he orders them all to get out of his way, promising to spare the lives of those who comply. The guards fire flaming arrows, forcing him to dodge. In response, he casts a spell of white flames, devastating the soldiers instantly. Even so, more guards continue shooting fire arrows at him, and Seika summons one of his demons, the Force Weasel. He slices through the guards in seconds, and as the guards advance en masse, Seika incinerates them all with his flames. He finally reaches Amiyu, destroying her cell, declaring that he has come to rescue her. Amiyu worries that he might get into trouble for forcibly freeing her, but Seika insists that her life is in danger. She believes that her innocence has been proven and that everything will be fine, asking him to leave. Then Seika reveals that she is the great heroine, and that matters are not so simple. Amiyu is confused, so he explains that every few centuries, the hero and the demon king reincarnate, and that she is the current incarnation of the hero, targeted by the Empire, which wishes to eliminate her. For those without power fear those who possess it. Suddenly, Seika senses someone approaching. It is Glai, and Seika comments that he still owes him a duel. But Princess Fiona appears, saying that she only wishes to talk. Seika notices that she has men outside, but he knows they would be no match for him. He asks why she tries to kill Amiyu, and whether the true enemy should be the Demon King. The princess explains that in the past, the hero saved the country from the demons. But in the present, both the Empire and the demons have armies, and neither side desires war. Thus, the figures of heroes and the Demon King are merely relics of the past, and Seika argues that if that is so, there is no need to kill Amiyu. But Princess Fiona insists that her very existence could be the spark that ignites a war, revealing that even the demons attempted to kill her, not to gain advantage, but to prevent that risk. Seika considers whether he should allow Amiyu to be sacrificed to preserve peace. But the princess assures him that she is trying to save her. She asks him to step back, promising that he will not be held accountable, and that she will do everything possible to protect Amiyu. However, Seika realizes that he has been manipulated from the very first encounter, and he does not trust her. The princess reminds him of the promise he made to obey her after losing at chess, but Seika refuses. With no other choice, she guides the two outside the palace, where a carriage already waits, recommending that they travel to the free city of Hakuna. Before departing, Amiyu thanks her for the cloak she received, remembering that Princess Fiona visited while she was imprisoned. As they bid farewell, Seika feels guilty for not keeping the promise and decides to make amends. He summons multiple doors, releasing an immense number of talismans that recreate all the soldiers he had slain. The princess is shocked, saying that this would ruin her plans, as she had prepared a story about a monster attack. But Seika apologizes, stating that he only wanted to help. And then Seika, together with Amiyu, leaves the capital. He thinks of Mabel and Yifa, who must be worried, and Amiyu feels bad for having to leave the academy so close to graduation. However, she becomes excited at the idea of becoming adventurers. And meanwhile, we see Princess Fiona sending a letter to explain the entire situation to Mabel and to Yifa. Seika and Amiyu arrive at the city of Hakuna. They notice a commotion in the distance, and upon approaching, they are surprised to find Mabel and Yifa already there. The two run toward Seika and Amiyu, and together, they celebrate the reunion, finally being able to stay together again. And here our anime ends, entirely open-ended, full of unresolved matters, but that is how it is. Unfortunately, it will not have a second season, so what remains for us is the original material. I recommend that afterward you take a look at this anime's soundtrack. It is very good. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like, comment down below. Don't forget to hype the video, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for everything. Stay with God. Thanks. Goodbye. See you in the next video.